Play.
My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hello from a vibrant sports bar in Porto. I hope you can hear me amidst the music, Jack.
I can hear you, John. Yeah, how are you?
I'm okay. As long as you can hear me all right, that's fine. Adds a little bit of colour. I've got a beer in hand. First one of the day, I hasten to add.
Love it. I've got a water, but I need
Rock and roll.
hydrated. So I'm yeah, exactly. I'm excited to drink my water, John. How have we been?
Yeah, good. I see that I just played a little clip with Jasmine Paolini, and of course she is through. I don't know if you know that she got a walkover against Bouzková.
I did not know that. No.
It's only the last 20 minutes or so that's emerged, but Bouzková, it does seem to be a recurring theme, unfortunately, with her. That it was quite late. I think they were due to take the court, and late on, Bouzková withdrew, which is a bit of a pity.
Former finalist, of course. It's a bit of a shame.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but then obviously, you know, not many people were counting her in this tournament, and Paolini is large and in charge at the moment, so maybe she probably would have won anyway. So maybe
it's a Jasmine Paolini world, and we're just living in it.
It is. I honestly, I think at the start of this year when she won Dubai, I remember being like just flabbergasted and being like state of the WTA, and I'll absolutely eat my words. She's playing so well. She definitely, you know, makes up for the lack of serve with some phenomenal play from the back of the court. So
very much so.
I'll eat my words.
I'm sharing her section of the draw right now on the screen. Osaka, Bouzková, Potapova 3. Well, actually, no, even Putintseva as well. It's a fairly even section of the draw, but I've got Osaka in my semi-final, Jack.
Well, that's fair. Although obviously this is probably the biggest test I would have said out of that quarter.
Do you think even I mean, a year ago I would have agreed with you, but now I'm not so sure.
Again, you know, I've given the respect to Paolini. I guess we'll continue there, but I think Bouzková on her day, respectfully to Paolini, is probably still a better player for me on a hard court. Just the variety, maybe the kind of thing that finds a way past Osaka, where maybe Paolini does get overpowered on return by Osaka, and it's maybe just not the greatest matchup for her. So I would say maybe Bouzková is a little bit more of a threat than Paolini in this case.
I agree, but there was the most important expression in what you just said was on her day. And yes. I liked what Matt from the Tennis Podcast said a few days ago about Holger Rune. Is, you know, we can say this about a lot of players, and Holger definitely falls into that category on his day. You know, Shapovalov probably falls into that category, and so on and so forth. But it's all about your base game, right, Jack?
Yeah, I do think, in fairness, there's a predictability about these players. Yes, we say on their day, but I think Bouzková and Rune are definitely streaky players. They're the kind of players that, you know, will win a lot of matches, and then maybe there's a few tournaments in a row where they kind of go downhill for a while. So when we're talking about Bouzková and looking at her recent results, obviously, you know, the injuries, as always, just kind of stunting things. And actually, this is the case with Bouzková. I don't think it's necessarily that she's a player that's prone to unforced errors. but it's maybe just been a lack of momentum that has caused the issues for her because of all this stopping and starting and not being able to play. Where Runa is obviously a completely different kettle of fish, but maybe that's a story for another day while we talk about the women's job. But yeah, Bouzková, absolutely. If she kind of capitalizes on the momentum she built in Palermo, if we can even talk about that being momentum, it's already a month and a half away, I guess. Then maybe she's got a chance against Osaka. But yeah, I definitely rate Osaka as the favourite here, John, particularly after that first round dispatch. I think it's fair to say.
For me, like a lot of these tournaments sort of pan out, it's often about the first round, and it depends on who you're playing in that first round. But if you've got a tricky opponent in the form of Ostapenko, although I say in the form of, I mean in the shape of, rather than the form, because actually Ostapenko's form in terms of tennis the last 6 months has been more hit. I was going to say hit and miss, but actually more miss than hit, unfortunately. So she's in a bit of a doldrums as well, and that probably got forgotten about a little bit amidst the joy of Osaka winning.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of hype around that match where obviously Ostapenko is completely her own player, and then she can turn up and not put on the greatest performance in her own words as well. Do you know what I mean? I think she has been quoted as saying, if I was playing 50% of my best game, then I would have beaten X and Y. So yeah.
Is that about Osaka or just in
No,
general?
not about Osaka, of course, not about Osaka. It was definitely a different player, but it wasn't Osaka. I'd have to pull out the history books to find out who
that's
that was,
almost
John.
Similar to the TFO, the TFO quote we had a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Quite similar. And Holger Rune didn't go quite that far, but in his tweet, he said something on the lines of, I played terribly, that's not good enough for me, regarding the loss to Nakashima. And he did put in there somewhere about, look, hats off to Brandon, who played really well. But I think there is a line, I don't know where it is, even at the amateur level as well, Jack, when you're so annoyed at how you're missing left, right, and centre, or you're not playing what you think is your best. And there is a line about, but don't forget that person over the other side of the net is, causing you trouble, if you like.
There has been a recurring theme over the past few days with players responding to internet backlash. I don't know if you've noticed that, and it's interesting to see the personalities coming out from different players. And
well, do you mean internet backlash like people biting back to these comments, or do you mean what Garcia highlighted in terms of anger and Garcia highlighted getting some vitriol from probable gamblers that are not happy with their level?
Exactly, that kind of stuff. Kachanov mentioned it. Vondrousova mentioned the hate for her hair, and all these players kind of speaking out. Rune obviously being the most obvious one because he absolutely ripped himself to shreds when maybe there could have been a bit more of a respectful way to talk about it. But I think it's interesting. A lot of the players are kind of like taking a stance, and they're kind of just tired of people online. But then the other side of that is a lot of these players have just always ignored it. And to be honest, I think that's the way to do it. I think the more airtime you give these guys, the worse it is.
I mean, it's easy for you and I to probably say, although I have had a bit, more not tennis related. I had a bit of hate a year or so ago about an article I wrote, but I just looked at it as going, these are just people in dark caves in India, and I mentioned India because that was where the vitriol of abuse was coming from, about an article I wrote about India, but it's just sort of it's easy maybe for it's case by case and it's individual by individual, but for me it's just water off a duck's back because it's just some troll in a cave somewhere,
Oh, absolutely. And I think for you and I, John, it's we can certainly stomach it, but we're in probably a position to I guess be more hurt than a player like Kachanov or Rune, who have accomplished insane things in their lives. And I think Kachanov, fair enough, 5.5 hour battle, and he's getting some hate online. I think it makes sense to kind of send a message of love out to everybody. But Rune just needs to chill a little bit. I mean, he's still 15 in the world. He's one of the best players ever. I think just keep the head down, keep working, and that he's young. I'm obviously it's all good. He's letting his personality flourish a bit, and I totally let him off with it because I would do the same thing when I was 21. But I think he'll grow and he'll realise that he doesn't need to give these guys any airtime at all.
I'm sharing scores from time to time on the screen, matches that are currently going on. Bouzková winning the first set against Samsonova. That's interesting. What Samsonova?
Yeah, it's funny how I think my two kind of I don't know what to call them, the two players that I put a lot of stock in a while ago must have been Qin Wen and Qin Wen Zhang and Samsonova. And Samsonova's Samsonova truly has been hit or miss, right? And it just seems like it's not a horse I want to back anymore. Where Kim Wen-jing is obviously, that's turned out pretty nicely. And it looks like she's going to get deep at pretty much every tournament she plays.
Yeah, again, another one of these players that gets a tricky first round, but if you can get through that first round, things look a bit better. And she got through that one against Anisimova, and she was in a bit of trouble. She lost the first set. She got broken left, right, and centre. I'm just watching Iga on my screen right now. I don't know if you've got a match on, and if so, which one it is.
Yeah, Iga at the moment. I didn't know much about her opponent until Shibahara. I've done a little bit of just looking her up and stuff, but I don't know. Do you know anything about her, John, off the bat? Oh, you're muted, John. You're muted.
No, I don't know. I was when you said you've done a bit of research, I was like, brilliant.
minimal research, to be fair. I know she's 100% a double specialist, and obviously got to like number 4 in the world. But I mean, she's not really had any slam success in singles. And in fact, I'm looking at her Wikipedia page; it doesn't even have it there. That's the unremarkability of her.
This is a sort of a not quite old sage comment, but I probably wouldn't ever put myself in that category. But the first thing I wanted to do is find out how old she was. If there's a player, if you're watching, by the way, and you've never seen this particular player play, the first thing I think of, okay, how old is she or how old is he? And if they're sort of 19, 20, 21, and I haven't heard of them, that's okay, that's fine. Look, they could still have a stellar career. If they're 26, in the case of Shibahara, it's like, okay, this is a moment, if that makes sense. More often than not, if you're, like Radu Albot, I'd never played Djokovic until the other day, and I'm like, how is that possible? Why? Because Radu Albot's 34 years old, and Djokovic is 37, I think, and it's kind of funny. Whereas, so back to this particular point, it's like if this player is like 18, 19, 20, and I've never heard of them, that's okay. They may end up, making quarterfinals of slams on a regular basis yet, Yeah. But when they're sort of in their mid to late 20s, it's like, oh, okay, this is obviously a nice moment, and she's got the second round, of course, but well, we'll see. I think Świątek will have it a bit easier today than she did in the first round. But to be honest with you, the first round kind of surprised me that she struggled as much as she did, Iga. I mean, she had to save 3-set points in the second set.
Oh, she does sometimes come out quite nervy, and I get it when she's on a bit of a faster court and the other player can kind of make her feel a bit rushed and a little bit out of time. Rakhimova's did seem like not somebody that could beat her, but certainly somebody that could give her a little bit of bother. So probably quite a good test for her, actually. I think maybe last year she was a little bit prone to the fact that she hadn't been tested, and then she comes out against Ostapenko, who probably most people put as the favourite. Iga had to be firing on all cylinders. She wasn't, and then she got blown off the court. So maybe it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise. I hardly think the second round is going to test her. No offense to Shibahara, we'll see. But it seems unlikely just given the skill set of Shibahara. And Świątek's obviously pretty comfortable here when she's having a decent-ish day, John.
I'm looking into my crystal ball right now, Jack, and it tells me I could see WTA, I can see Jack's predictions for the US Open in my crystal ball. And I think the winner, I have Aryna Sabalenka. Is that right for you?
Yeah, it's the safe bet, right? That's the safe bet. I think probably the last 6 hard court slams I've probably picked Aryna Sabalenka. And I think
isn't just that, Jack. I think I know on occasion that has been the case, and me too. And sometimes I've got it right, sometimes I've got it wrong. But I distinctly remember Wimbledon last year when I went Rybak and a UN Sabalenka, and of course both of them fell to Ons Jabeur. But this year, 80% of the people I think in tennis that I've heard from anyway regarding this have gone Sabalenka. And for me at least, it's just because the last couple of weeks, i.e. winning in Cincinnati. And the shoulder's okay. That was the other. I mean, actually, I had her to win Wimbledon. And then the shoulder flares up in Berlin. And as it turns out, she was a last-minute withdrawal. And I was like, oh, well, that's messed that up. And I think she had an excellent chance this year.
She's got a pretty tough draw at the same time. This could end up being Alexandrova, Keys, Zheng, back-to-back. That's rough. That is pretty difficult.
So it gets tough now, yeah. So third round, Alexandrova. Fourth round, Keys, did you say?
Yeah.
And then quarterfinal,
Zheng,
yeah. I mean, it's quite tough, Jack. But when you get to the third round, And if Alexandrova makes it, as she obviously has done, yeah, I mean, Keys,
then things will be tough. That's I actually
kind of how it is. Yeah,
I was going to say, John, I don't really feel any upset ability from Alexandrova. Sabalenka does hit the ball harder, more consistently. It's not really a matchup that should worry her that much. Keys is just like, kind of Ostapenko levels of peak, and if she is feeling it, and obviously they had that match last year. Oh my God, you can't forget about that. That was so
a year ago. Yeah.
So I mean, if they have anything like that again, who knows? And then Zheng is really kind of dark horse in a kind of way. Obviously not the darkest of horses, but and she could sneak past Sabalenka. I do think that could happen if she does get that far. So it's a bit of a scary draw, and I don't feel like super confident about anyone really. But yeah, if I had to pick somebody, it would be Sabalenka probably, John. Quick pause. Also, I suppose.
Sorry, I was just adding something to the YouTube channel. I still think. That final in Australia that Zheng had against Sabalenka was quite predictable as well. And on a hard court, I fancy Sabalenka if she's playing well enough.
I genuinely think Zheng has gotten better since then.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, she's obviously got some pretty good results since then, none more so than at the Olympics. The serve, I don't know if that's an area of the game that you think Zheng has improved, but that was an area that I was looking at the beginning of the year and last year as well as being something that was a bit hit and miss, mainly because I'm getting caught up in the style of it as well. It's a bit, unorthodox looking. If there's sort of feels a bit disjointed. There's a sort of I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but you know what I mean when you watch.
Well, literally, it's not loaded with topspin. It's quite flat. It's kind of going to travel a lot, and yes, it's effective when it goes in. But I had talked a lot about that in the past, and the percentages are going up. To be fair, John, in terms of first serve win percentage, in terms of first serve in percentage, she is making more of them. So she's obviously made a few tweaks here and there, and to the naked eye, I'm not 100% sure what those are, but she is making more serves. So she's clearly doing something right and maybe feeling a bit more confident for it, John.
Świątek has got the early break, and she's also at 15 love. If it'd been the other way round, I'd have been shouting from the rooftops. But eager breaking at the beginning of this match is not quite as noteworthy enough to interrupt you talking about Qin Wencheng's serve. Mirra Andreeva was in. Oh, she's in big trouble. I was going to say she was in a bit of trouble, but I saw her 2-2 was the last I saw. But obviously, Krueger's won 3 games in a row, and Mirra Andreeva going out is, in my opinion, despite Krueger's level, is good news for Iga Świątek.
Yeah, it would have been a mini challenge, and she obviously gave her a pretty good. She gave her a good run for her money in Cincinnati, so yeah, it could have been pretty difficult. Obviously, Mirra improving every day as well, so I think Świątek will be pretty relieved to see her going out. Krueger really gonna bother Iga? I would have said no. This is probably the moment Damien interrupts me and he's like, "Are you kidding? There's no way Krueger beats Świątek." And yeah, that's fair enough. I don't think she would.
It reminds me of pretty much a year ago to the day when Dan Evans won a rally, or maybe even won a set. It was a set, I think, and that's when Damien came out with the classic line of "It doesn't matter." and it kind of did, and it was a 4-set win, but it was a great match. And Dan Evans, by the way, wow! We talked about Hatchnov earlier, but just wow.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the actual match itself, of course. Phenomenal, and so it's almost a little bit Andy-esque in a way. In that, obviously the marathon match itself was pretty Andy-esque, but Dan's just had the worst year, and he kind of comes out and he wins this huge match anyway, and I feel like that's so Andy, just to like go for it anyway, and who cares about any of the other results? Just give it your all anyway. And it was quite inspiring, John. I liked it.
He's had a horrible 12 months because it was the injury in Vienna, I think. I get some of these indoor tournaments confused, so it might have been Basel or it might have been somewhere else. But one of those, I'm pretty sure it was Vienna anyway last year. And that injury put him out of the Davis Cup, meaning his comeback was Australia. And as you say, this calendar year has been pretty rough for him. And of course, now he's dropped all those points from Washington because he went to the Olympics, I think, Jack, and he played alongside someone there, but I don't remember who it was.
No, I have no
Playing
idea.
alongside him, that
All
was
a bit
there,
of a
but-
blur. I can't really remember. No,
But,
yeah.
but
Didn't defend his title in Washington as a result, of course.
Exactly, yeah. But because of that added something a bit more to me. When I'm watching that fifth set against Hatchinoff the other day, you know, I'm not. I like Dan Evans. I know he upsets people sometimes and rubs people up the wrong way for one reason or another. And most of the time, I'm on his side, but sometimes not. That match of the day, I was very much on his side in the fifth set. Nothing against Karen, and of course, what happened subsequently. Andreeva has a great point, by the way, on Krueger. But yeah, it was such a fall up down as well in that fifth set.
Yeah, and 15-40, I believe it was for a triple break in the end. It was mad.
Yeah, I actually tuned, funny enough, I said I watched the fifth set. That's not entirely true. I tuned in at 4-all in the fifth set, not knowing what had gone on in the previous 4 games. I just saw something somewhere that says, "Oh wow, Dan Evans and Karen Hatchinoff into a fifth set, blah blah blah," and it was 4-all. So I thought, okay, I better tune in right now, and I did. And so I actually watched the last 3 or 4 games, not knowing what had happened even before that.
Yeah, it honestly, it blew me away. It was absolutely mad. I am seeing Ghosty's comments in the chat there. Andy-esque laughing face. I mean, 5.5 hour match. Give the guy some credit, Ghosty. It's absolutely phenomenal. And yes, he's right. I do have 2 criteria for assessing a tennis player: like
Ghosty,
Andy or not like Andy.
Ghosty likes Evans though. He likes Evans so much so he calls him Evo.
Looking at a few of the other results as well, by the way, John. Katie Bolter went out to Bouzková, the person who knocked Bouzková, of course, out of Wimbledon when she was trying to defend her title.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And Sarah Irani, I didn't realise was a set-up to get to the 3rd round of the US Open against Caroline Dolehide. I mean, credit where credit's due, right? She's done some pretty great stuff recently.
She has, Sarah Irani, a mini revival. I would have had Dolehide to win that. And of course, by the way, they are only on serve there. But yeah, I don't know what's happening with Irani in the last few weeks. But you're right, she's pulled up a few good results, I'd say, since the back end of the clay season. But Dolehide, I thought Dolehide would cause Collins some trouble. I didn't predict a Dolehide win, but seeing how the first couple of sets went there against Collins, I was like, yeah, 3 sets makes sense. I expected Collins to prevail, but she didn't in the end, of course. But yeah, well, good for Sarah Irani, but of course, there's a long way to go yet.
Yeah, still a while. Sarah Irani, by the way, was just 2 points from victory a second ago, 30-all at 0.5.
Oh,
so,
I
yeah.
see. I see. Okay.
It was a teetering there just for a second. I also see Peyton Stearns beat Kasatkina. Maybe not the biggest surprise, of course. Stearns fully capable of hitting the Russian on her day, so maybe not too surprising. Svitolina as well with a little closet result. Kalinina, of course, maybe not the player she was last year, but still Svitolina got to be a dark horse, right? She's just so consistent. She can beat anybody, I think, when she's playing well enough. So has to be counted in for sure.
Yeah, so just to remind people or to let people know if you're just tuning in, Paolini is through after a walkover over Pliskova. And yeah, Katie Bolter out. I don't really know where to stand with Katie Bolter. I think a decent serve, quick surfaces, maybe a Wimbledon run one day. Maybe I'm a bit more optimistic on her than you are, at least from memory from about 6 to 12 months ago. We had a chat about her. I can't remember if it was on the record or off the record, but yeah, you're not 100% convinced about Katie's game, right?
Not really. No, she's big hitter, big server, but there's loads of players that can out rally her. And if you're gonna, I mean, how many top 10 players has she beaten? Maybe she's beaten a couple just off the top of my head on grass, but I just don't. On other surfaces, I don't see it happening. And
she wasn't top 10 at the time, but she did win San Diego, beating Krejcikova in the final. I think it was Krejcikova in the final, though it might not have been actually. No, it wasn't Krejcikova. Krejcikova won the San Diego title the year before. But she beat Jessica Pegula, I think, maybe in the semis.
Yes, that was on grass though, I think, right?
No, San Diego.
Oh, that's San Diego.
Yeah,
apologies then. Okay,
yeah, don't forget San Diego, otherwise Vance will be mad.
That's fair. Yeah, Vance has been pretty big on Nakashima recently.
which is fair, by the way. But he has 3 or 4 favorites, and there's a San Diego link, or there's a I've played tennis with them before link, and that's the Brandon Nakashima thing. But Barbora Krejcikova is another one of his. But I don't know if it's just because she won San Diego, but there's a few little like strands with him. Cam Noy, he likes Cam Noy, but I think it's just because of some of the grief that Cam gets, and he just sort of riles enjoys the banter, if you like. Yeah, so that's that. Krueger is, by the way, been broken by Andreeva, but she's obviously still got one break in the pocket, and that's where she's going to try and serve it out for a second time. That'll be a hell of a comeback from Mirra Andreeva if she pulls it off.
Shades of her comeback against who was it? She came back against earlier.
Yeah, she did come back from a double break against somebody recently, I think.
Yeah, I can't quite remember who it was. That's annoying me. I'll have to look it up now because it's bothering me. But this could be a very similar thing. She's obviously very, very hacky when she needs to be. You know, absolutely digs everything out. And I don't know, John. Maybe let's just call the upset. I think I'm going to back it now because I'm feeling it.
You're backing her to make a comeback.
Yes, I think so.
Iga is up 4-love, by the way. So the longer you don't hear me talk about the Iga match, the longer it means the inevitable is going to happen. She's 40-love up as well on her serve. Dollarhide is serving to stay in it, and Bouzková is up a set and a break now on Samsonova. So yeah.
Andreeva came back. There you go. As Zanab's just said it at the same time against Parry at the Australian Open earlier this year.
Okay, Diane Parry. What other memories or thoughts have you got from the US Open this year so far? Any moments that you've tuned in for and thought, that was pretty cool?
Nothing so far. I don't think anything's been particularly remarkable. In fact, I've been quite taken aback by the maybe lack of upsets so far. So nothing sticking out so far, and also, John, the few moments I have seen have been highlights. I haven't been able to catch any full matches yet.
That's why I sort of mentioned it in that way. But there were sort of 3 matches that I've dipped into, or they were all pretty late at night as well. I say late, like they could be later, but around about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Sloane Stevens is, can I say collapse in a nice way? I don't know if I can. Against Clara Burel. When she was up a set and 4-1, and then managed to lose from there. That also happened, I think, the same night, although I get my nights confused now, as there were 2 3-set matches going on at the same time. Raducanu against Kenin and Andreescu against Paolini. 4 names who've all, I think, been in Grand Slam finals. Yes. I think 3 of them Grand Slam winners in Kenin, Andreescu, and Raducanu's case. So, yeah, actually, that might have been a different night, but yeah, those sort of three matches are in my head from the women's side, but all going 3 sets and very different ways. A lot of talk about Raducanu recently. I don't know if you've been picking up on any of the narratives there, and not playing a warm-up tournament. And listen, if Osaka, by the way, does make that semi-final that I predicted, that's a very good comparison for Emma to look at, if you like, and go, oh, this was a lady that was in qualifying at Cincinnati and went out to Krueger, by the way, just a couple of weeks ago. And
Krueger wins, by the way.
Krueger's won, actually. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Naomi Osaka, 4-time Grand Slam winner, thinking I need matches to play a Grand Slam, as we all, I mean, I've never played a Grand Slam, Jack, you'll be surprised to hear, but even I know that reps is a thing, and but seemingly Emma Raducanu and her team, whoever that is, didn't realise that.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of what Raducanu does, if she's not winning matches, she's going to get flagged, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
You know, it's not fair, I guess, but yeah, she's not living up to the expectations she set. I just think maybe people need to lay off her, and I think it's the fact the expectations were set full stop. I just never ever really believed that would happen ever again. And you know that, John, because I said it pretty much.
I do know that. Yeah, I do know that. If you were saying that in October or September 2021, I would have been surprised to hear that. But and maybe you were. I didn't know you then, of course. But I know you were saying it in 2023, and I'm sure throughout 2024 as well. Yeah, maybe she just isn't as good as I and many others thought she was.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing it pretty. I thought I said it straight afterwards. In fact, I think I have it in writing, John.
Okay.
I just thought it was a flash in the pan. It was just like super peak, and it might never happen again. Is basically what I said. Probably won't happen again.
And it does seem as though Mirra Andreeva's comeback is over because she is out. Bouzková remains a set and a breakup. So Mirra Andreeva is out. So just to know that not all of Jack's predictions come true, including one from about 30 seconds ago. Would we consider this loss for Mirra a massive upset? Ozan's asking on Twitter.
It's not huge. It's kind of, Mirra's young. I just think people need to realise when players are young, there's a lot of ups and downs, and this will just happen. And not everybody is Świątek and or Monica Seles or anything like that. Exactly Kalar Sakura. It's just, it's not mental. I obviously still would have said Mirra was maybe like the 70-30 favourite, but yeah, there's going to be upsets like that for her until she kind of finds her true game, I would say.
Yeah. Any predictions for the men's side?
Yeah, who have we not had yet? Is this overall, sorry, John, or just today?
Yeah, overall thoughts, just in general. I mean, I went for Carlos to win the title, but to be honest with you, it wasn't like Sabalenka on the women's side, where it's like, I know that's my pick. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure about that. Whereas on the men's side, I had some doubts about everyone. People like Medvedev, for example, is in such a funny place right now compared to where he was, say, a year ago. And I'm not saying that, he was going to win the US Open a year ago, but you always felt that Medvedev on a hard court was a solid pick to get to the semis or the final. Whereas now it feels like Medvedev, having not won a title since Roma last year and losing back-to-back matches in Canada and Cincinnati, that even on a hard court, you don't really quite know what to say. I mean, 5 sets, I think, works in his favor a little bit. Carlos had a couple of issues recently in terms of fitness, but also obviously losing that gold medal match to Novak, which may have surprised one or two people. Novak, I know, he's had a great year because he won the Olympic gold medal, and he could never win another match for the rest of the year, and he's had a great year in a way because of what his targets were. But really, if we look at the rest of the year, Novak is not winning the US Open, if we look at that as a body of work. And then Jannik, we've got this huge cloud over him and from the doping, scandal. But more specifically with Jannik, even if we think he can handle that pretty well, and he may well do, there's the 5-set thing with him. I don't think he has put that to bed despite winning in Australia in the final, funny enough, in 5 sets. I think that was a funny thing just because Medvedev had played like 100 hours of tennis that week, or that fortnight. So, the three obvious picks. There's a reason not to pick them, but I went for Carlos in the end.
Yes, it's ironic with Sinner that I don't even want to say it to him. I do think that Sinner is probably in the clear. I mean, all these guys like take stuff to get their body recovered, right? And it's just whether or not it's on the doping list or not, basically at the time. And it doesn't sound like it's a huge amount of whatever it is that was in the system, etc., etc. I just doesn't really sound right to me that he is guilty, especially being the world number one.
Almost certainly not guilty, Jack. I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with people saying, I don't know. That's an okay answer. Yeah. But I don't think you can say it with any great conviction. That's for sure. I'm okay with going, you know what? Yeah, fine. Probably innocently, taken on board whatever it was he did. What I will say is, though, that it's been about 20 years now. Well, we've had drug cases in sport since the 70s, since there was like East German systemic situations going on in the 70s and possibly even before. But this is since the 70s, it's become a thing in sport. 1988, probably the most high profile example of doping in sport history with Ben Johnson when he won the 100 meters with his eyeballs pumping out and his muscles just going, and he breaks the world record 9:79. But does ultimately fail a drugs test. But by the 80s, the case of Bivons, and by the 90s, there were some cases in the 90s and 2000s were like, I didn't know that toothpaste had something in it, or all sorts of weird and wonderful reasons, if you like. And at the time, it was like, oh, that's possible, and that's desperately unfortunate. By the sort of 2010s onwards, it was like, that is no longer an excuse. That you now need to check. You know, you don't even take a super bock in a bar as I'm doing right now with being 110% sure that nothing has contaminated that when you're at the absolute elite sport. So for 2024, for somebody who's the world number one and won a Grand Slam, and of course I'm pointing the finger at the people treating him, you know, for them, and by the way, this steroid is super well known in Italy. There's been quite a few high-profile cases for this accidentally seeping into various people's systems because it's readily available in Italy, unlike other countries. So you'll pick up an ointment to help yourself, you know, fix a wound or whatever, and you'll eat, you know, Joe Smith on the street, although there aren't many Joe Smiths in Italy, I imagine, are accidentally taking this on board. But if you're not a professional sports person, it doesn't matter. I'm just shocked that that level of carelessness, which, as I say, is pretty much not an excuse anymore. It's not an excuse because you just gotta and if you're getting a tiny advantage, even if it's inadvertent, you know, unfortunately, it's just how it is. But that's, as I say, I'm fine with it, and I'm not fine with some of the way the things that pan out in terms of Casper sorry, I'm looking at Casper on the screen right now. I'm half a beer, that is. With Yannick Sinner getting treated differently to other players across the board, that's also something that doesn't rest easy with me.
Yeah, I think all of that's fair enough, John. You are right. You're definitely right. So it does leave a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth, and it's quite difficult to just be completely dismissive of. But I totally trust the intentions of Yannick Sinner. If that maybe that's unfair to say. Maybe the guy's deceived me. Maybe he comes across as this lovely guy, and it's all false. But I all we've got really is to kind of judge the player in front of us and make a call, and that's what I'm doing with Yannick. And there's other players in the past where I've not been so sure, but with Yannick, it just doesn't seem likely that. Obviously, it's not on purpose. I think we know that almost for a fact, John. But so it kind of falls to the team in a way, and it's a bit of a shame, that then it falls on Yannick as a fault, right?
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, I'm fine with the procedure, and I'm okay with Yannick continuing to play tennis, but maybe other players didn't quite get that grace. Funny question here, which is aimed at me from Nerlan. Do I ever mumble the rhymes and shake my head? No, I don't think I do, especially rap songs. I'm not familiar with the lyrics to a lot of rap songs. But thank you, Nerlan, for that question. Do let us know, Nerlan, if you've got any tennis questions too. But you're fine. That's fine if you want to ask non-tennis questions. Clostebol is the name, of course, of the steroid in question here. Back to the tennis. Iga's won the first set 6-love and is already leading 1-love in the second, so that could turn nasty. Bouzková up a set and a break, still up a set and a break, but getting closer to the finish line on Samsonova. Some Jack Draper comments from Ozan in the live chat, tuning in on Twitter. Is he playing Facundo Diaz Acosta? Maybe it seems like he is on court 5. What about Jack Draper and his ceiling?
I suppose
you don't
seen
think
him
top 10. By the way,
I think top 10, John.
I would say.
I think top 10 definitely. I think he can get there. His game's huge. It's absolutely massive. And there's times maybe he just hasn't trusted it and kind of stopped going for it, and then sits back a wee bit. And it's almost like if he found a way to just harness that side of the game all the time, he'd be beating big players consistently. He really would, because it's a really huge game, and I just remember being absolutely blown away by it when I saw it live at Queen's. And I suppose part of it is that he has to be on a fast court, and he has to take advantage of conditions that are going to maybe suit his game a little, and let that serve kind of zip through a bit. And I suppose that's probably to his disadvantage, given the courts are generally medium to slow nowadays, I guess. Maybe not slow, but certainly medium, not fast. So I guess, John, it depends how many strings he adds to his bow? Can he maybe play a little better on clay? Can he find a way to get a little bit more grindy? Obviously, that's a huge percentage of the tour. And then can he take advantage of maybe slower conditions on hard courts? Just having a huge game isn't enough to be top 10, I would say. So maybe there's some holes he needs to fill in before he gets there. But the potential is so there, John. It's just too big to ignore.
There is a factor that I think is important right now that probably still needs to be fixed, which is physicality, 5 sets. I think he had Shibahara in the first round, and I thought, wow, that's got 5 sets written all over it. It didn't turn out that way because Zhang retired in the third, albeit 2 sets to love down at the time. I just not quite sure over. I mean, you by the way, you can have, you can win 5 titles over 3 sets over the course of the year and manage to prepare yourself to the top 10. But I still think that with Jack, a little bit like Yannick maybe a year or so ago, and Holger Rune as well, that sometimes I worry about him when it goes 4 or 5 sets, especially like back to back over the case, say on a Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday scenario.
Yeah, I still think that's maybe an asterisk in an otherwise top 10 potential player. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a big problem for top 10 players as well. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking top 5 here. We're not talking, basically rubbing heads with Yannick and Carlos. We're just talking a guy that easily could beat, Steph, Andre, all these guys on his day quite easily for me. He's got a bigger game than them most of the time, I would say. But it's just about harnessing it a bit.
There's a comment here also from Ozan about Draper being, and I pretty much, I think we both kind of agree with this. He has the tools to become a slam contender. But that's very carefully worded, or maybe casually worded from Ozan, as in like he has the tools. Well, that means something. To be a slam contender, that just means that one day he makes a slam semi-final, I guess. And I think, probably one day in his career, there will be a slam where you go, this could be the day, whether that's this year or next, I don't know. Ghosty, I'm familiar with Edmund Wilderson since you highlighted him to me the other day. I read, I think the article that you put my way, I thought was very interesting. And he's been on a podcast this week with Yannick Schneider, who's somebody who delves into the world of doping. Both those individuals, by the way, are far more advanced than I am in that world, which is why I don't dip my toes much further than I have just done on the Yannick Sinner case. Nuno Borges winning the first set over Kokkinakis.
Yeah.
I mean, Borges land right now, so
that's not mega surprising, I'd say. Borges he's had a great season.
He's doing great, and I like Nuno a lot, especially as a person. But I would have Kokkinakis the favourite to win that, and of course he still might. But
yeah, I think Kokkinakis probably still comes out on top there. But honestly, Borges is good enough. Like he's playing pretty well when he wants to on every surface, so he could totally win that.
Is it unfair of me to say though that Nuno is just going to be maybe like João Sousa, and he may well. Somebody was saying earlier, I think, that Nuno is close to being the highest ever ranked Portuguese player on the men's side, at least, because I think Sousa reached 28, something like that, and Nuno is knocking at the door of the top 30. So another win today, and it may even push him past that limit. I don't know. But is it fair to say that Nuno is just going to be another João Sousa in that, solid, great, but maybe not quite pull up trees?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair to say. He's not got anything that startles you, that makes you think, oh my god, this guy's huge. But he's just he's top 20 is probably about his peak, and even then that's maybe a touch too far, possibly. So, but he is a player that absolutely could beat somebody like Kokkinakis, who Kokkinakis is obviously again a huge hitter, but he's just not one of those guys that can keep up with the 5-set format, that can really grind the other player down. Borges could totally win that just by one of attrition for me.
Maybe, yeah. I think Kokkinakis is just phenomenally talented. That's the thing, and in a way a little different from Nuno, and maybe that's an exciting match as a result. But Kokkinakis beating Stefanos Tsitsipas of the day, I didn't see it. I don't know what shape. I know Stefanos, and I know why you're sort of shaking your head and pulling those faces, because Stefanos in New York, Stefanos with all the chaos to some extent in the background, Stefanos being Stefanos, that it's probably not quite as surprising a defeat as it would have been, say, in Australia a couple of years ago. But yeah, I don't know. Kokkinakis, though, I think is a potential fourth round quarterfinalist here in New York, maybe if things go his way. I know Nuno Borges reached the fourth round in Australia this year, but that was like, oh, well done, Nuno, And then of course he comes up against Medvedev, and Medvedev just has too much for him.
I mean, it's a nice portion of the draw, of course it is. So yeah, I mean, anybody could get through. But you want, again, almost like Andreeva we were talking about earlier. Mensik is a very young player. He could totally get beaten by anybody at the moment. But once Mensik finds his form, much like Draper, he looks like he's got a game that is just too big to ignore. Like this guy should be top 20, if not top 10. We kind of need to wait and see where his game kind of settles and how big does it really get.
Kokkinakis injuries, that's been the thing.
Yeah. And it's quite hard to ignore that as well. This is what I mean by 5-set format. Does Kokkinakis really have the body for it? He gets knackered. Actually, part of the reason Kokkinakis, I'm sure, John, you're aware of this, but for the viewer at home, the injuries stemmed from vanity. It was a lot of shoulder. Do you not know this, John? So basically a lot of exercises basically to make him look very strong and bulky.
Oh, I didn't know.
It ended up having a very, very big impact on shoulders and the arms, and it took him out of the game for ages just because basically he wanted to look good.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy anyway. He's been blessed. He doesn't need to do much more work. He can just. And by the way, I don't know if you can see this comment on the screen. The good news is that as soon as you start talking about Kokkinakis, all the puns start coming out, and especially from Ghosty in particular. So that is always something to look forward to. Something that I don't think I was looking forward to was Goffin against Mannarino. I don't know if I'm being harsh there, but I like Mannarino for a variety of reasons. But I forget who Mannarino played in the first round. I think it was Chorich, yeah. And it was when those two were playing each other, it was like, oh, someone's going to have to win this tennis match. There's an expression in football where if you lose a match 6-0 and then you go, oh, but they were lucky to get nil, like they were lucky to get 0 goals. And I just felt with that Goffin Chorich match, it's like, okay, sorry, Mannarino Chorich, someone's going to have to win this tennis match because you can't have two losers. And I'm talking about their form in particular, because I think both have had moments in the last couple of years. But yeah, Goffin being in the second round. Didn't Murray beat Goffin this year in Indian Wells? Or am I getting confused with another? He beat a Belgian.
Did he?
Yeah, because was it last year? I just remember the commentary from what's the South African commentator's name?
Robbie Koenig.
And he goes, putting another nail in the Goffin was his I think on match point and that didn't Murray beat Goffin this year in Indian Wells, or was it last year?
I think maybe Miami rings a bell.
Or maybe Miami.
He did really well. It wasn't this year though, was it? No way, surely.
Might have been last year. I
He
mean, Indian Wells, Miami.
always had Goffin's number. Loved it. It was Indian Wells this year. Sorry, you're right. It was Indian Wells.
Year,
it was fairly comfortable.
Yeah.
3-2. Yeah, sorry. Also, I kind of want to speak about that. Thompson beating Hurkacz in the US Open, honestly, oh my god. And hardcourt slams in general. Obviously had a pretty good run at the Australian Open at the start of the year, but he just can't seem to get over the hump in terms of actually being a contender at any of these events.
I know, one Grand Slam semi-final at Wimbledon, and that's about it, really.
Wimbledon's always going to be a different kettle of fish, but the other two hardcourt slams, and obviously the French, seems to have no chance. He's now got a losing record at the US Open.
The hardcourt slams, he should be making a far bigger impression, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He's got a losing record, is he, at the US now?
Yep, 6-7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, well, Jack has got the early break according to Ozan, so that's cool. Enjoy your flight, Ghost D. Regarding that loss today, Thompson is maybe an underrated player, and Hurkacz not over, maybe not performing at the slams as you'd expect, but there is another asterisk, huge asterisk with Hurkacz at the moment. Until he got injured at Wimbledon this year, you know, this could have been his year. And then I don't know if he's rushed back or what, but I didn't have, a bit like with De Minaur. De Minaur's coming back from injury at this tournament. Wherever De Minaur eventually goes out at, I'm assuming he's not going to win the tournament. It's going to be like, well, you know, this is part of the comeback trail, and Hurkacz, of course, only being away for a couple of months is kind of surprising that he's back so soon. I mean, I heard people saying he's going to be done for the year. So then when he rocked up in Canada recently, it's like, wow, that's the injury, at least like some, you know, just, you know, I don't mean Bob Smith tweeting. I mean, like, you know, people saying, well, this injury normally means this amount of length of time, and we might not see him until Australia, or it might be good to be prudent. For him to then suddenly rock up in Canada was a surprise to many, and me included. Nevertheless, you probably would have thought he would beat Thompson today, but there we go.
Or at least been a bit, I don't know, want to say it's
more competitive.
A bit flat, that's all. So I thought it was worth a mention. But yes, that is a very good point.
I know you've got to leave. I don't know how many more minutes, or if you've got any more minutes at all left.
Yeah, I could do 5 minutes or so, I think.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I know I've got Tom joining as well. And we have no time limit on this. I've got 3 matches in the description, but the way Eagle's going, they may...
Shibahara on the board, John?
Yeah, I've just looked up at the screen for the first time in about 15 minutes, and I can see that she's got on the board, which is nice. And I'm sure she got a huge round of applause, just like Clara Burrell did the other day when she was 3-love down. So 6-love, 3-love. And there was one point at 6-love, 3-love, I think it was, which, or maybe it's 6-love, 2-love when this happened. It clipped off. It was one of those ones where Burrell comes into the net to put away an easy volley, but unfortunately it clips over the net and she can't quite react to the net cord. And she just looked down and looked up and looked around, and it's like, oh, just give this girl a break, you know, give her a point, give her a game. She then does get the game, although it ends up being 4-1 down. And an hour later, she's smiling incredulously that she's won the match. So tennis, eh?
6-love, 3-love. That scoreline does ring a bell. Muguruza did the same
3-love
thing.
with a double, 3-love with a double break. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Even more important. Yeah.
Muguruza did the same thing, right? Do you remember this?
Muguruza up 6-love, 3-love, or down?
Up 6-love, 3-love. I can't remember who it was. So maybe volley minutes. I think maybe.
Muguruza did tend to have a few sort of jittery moments, let's say, where you thought she'd win matches or whatever. I vaguely remember her losing a set 6-love as well, but ultimately winning the match in the first round of the French. But I could have that wrong as well. But Muguruza. Now that's someone who I did enjoy playing tennis a lot. Very different game style, but it was a lot of fun. Kokinakis, by the way, serving for the second set.
Okay, there we go. He's back on.
Although Borges has a breakback point.
I had to know it was Alison Risk, John. Alison Risk is who she lost to.
Samsonova's broken back against Bouzková, so she might yet force a third set.
We'll see. I'm so flat on Samsonova nowadays. I know we talked about it earlier, but I just find it so hard to get pumped up at the idea of her winning or losing. It's a coin toss every time, even more so than Ostapenko for me, because I think probably she has more misses than hits nowadays. So it's very difficult to back her.
Shall we make this stream a little bit more Glaswegian?
Go for it, yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Tom.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, fine. Probably better than me because I've got like blaring music in the background. But how you doing, Tom? All right?
I'm good. You're not in another bar, are you? Somewhere in the world, John?
I am in a bar. Yeah, in Porto. Yeah.
Are you ever not in a bar?
I'm at a challenge. Well, not right now, but I'm going to a challenger this week in Porto, and then off to another challenger in Seville on Saturday. Actually, I'll be there Sunday actually. But challengers all about. Although a couple of disappointing results here for the 2 Portuguese players, Rocha and Faria today, both going out pretty early here, and also both going out, I think, in the first round of qualifying as well in New York. So it's one of those sort of qualifying scenarios where you fly all the way out there, play a match, and come back again, because there's a real dearth of challengers, I think, in the build-up to the US Open. So it's a bit of an issue, in my opinion, that there aren't more that some of these qualifiers can use to warm up for the tournament. But how are you doing in general, Tom? Are you enjoying the US Open?
Yeah, well, the bits that I managed to watch of it, yeah, it's been decent. I mean, I was actually reading somewhere that it's been underwhelming at the first 3 days. I just wondered if you guys agreed with that. But yeah, I've watched bits and bobs. I managed to somehow, the one tennis match I did watch was Dan Evans and Khachanov. So I stayed for that, and I just got lucky because it was the match of the tournament so far.
Yeah. But no, Jack, you were sort of suggesting that maybe a little bit of an underwhelming in terms of shocks and crazy matches, maybe.
It's early days, you know. I'm sure a lot more could happen, and you know, there's always two halves to every slam, isn't there? You know, you get the kind of upsets and the craziness and chaos at the start, and then you get the real kind of memorable clash of the titans at the end. So maybe this will be one for the kind of bigger players to take the most excitement to the viewers. We'll see. Who knows?
What's been happening so far tonight then? I've literally just come in from work. John said you're not getting time to eat, so I've just jumped on and yeah. So what have I missed so far today on day 4? I'm
just trying to think of any drama that you would have missed. I mean, we just mentioned Hurkacz going out in straight sets to Thompson. Wow. Okay. Sinner they were exchanging breaks, Sinner and Mickelson, throughout the first set, but eventually he got over the line in the first set, and then he was home and dry. So Jannik is through the third round. I've got Igor on my screen up a set, although they're on serve in the second. Mirra Andreeva going out, maybe the story of the day so far off the top of my head. Pliskova pulling out through injury. But yeah, nothing crazy thus far. Jack, regarding your point, I think there's this for me as an observer, there's two ways that a slam can go, or any tournament, but slam in particular. We get all the seeds going through and we have an unbelievable quarterfinal lineup, which is fine. Or we just have chaos and everyone goes out, and that's fine as well. What I don't want to see is Novak Djokovic, Kokkinakis, Dan Evans, Barry Cowan, I don't know, Nuno Borges, whatever, Tim Henman in the quarterfinals. I sort of don't want that either, especially if you got one still standing. So if it's, I remember the French Open this year, Jack, when that match between Osaka and Iga took place, it was like, wow, this is incredible, and it was fantastic. But I thought, okay, Iga's come through that now. Who is in her way? Oh, no one. Especially when on the other side of the draw, you had Sabalenka, Rybakina, and a few others fall. And it was like, oh.
But I think, I know you're saying the others fell, but it's almost like if Iga's still in the draw at the French, you are underwhelmed, I think, just by her presence. Where it's like that Osaka match came out of nowhere. I was like, oh my God, like Osaka's so bad on clay. How's she ever going to live with Iga? And then it just was like, oh my God, this is like probably, that was the match of the tournament. So yeah, a little like surprise. It's not, obviously I'm saying surprises. Osaka is Osaka, and we shouldn't be too surprised, but little surprises like that in a way can be probably the story of the tournament sometimes. We've not had that yet, obviously. We'll see what happens. Oh, you're muted, John. Again, you're muted.
Well, that's good, because I'll jump in quickly. So again, I'm conscious I sometimes bring this back to football, but I think it's sometimes a good way to describe it. Actually, Calvin Betton actually spoke about this in a podcast not too long ago about if you're talking about the FA Cup. The FA Cup's great when, like, you know, if you've got a small team knocking out one of the big dogs like Man United, which, you know, can happen quite often. But when you get to like the semi-final and the final, if that small team who is like all the story, everybody loves the fact that the small team knocked out the giant. When they get to the final, it devalues the final, because they're obviously going to be playing another Premier League team who are going to go 9 times out of 10 and actually win that final, and it actually ruins the tournament. And I thought that was quite an interesting take, because, you're talking about, you don't want all the seeds to go through. You don't want Djokovic just to be playing, people from 30 downwards. But when was the last time? I mean, when was the last Grand Slam you had where the quarterfinals was the 1 to 8 seeds in the men's or the women's? I mean, I can't remember.
Oh, almost never. But it doesn't have to be just one. Doesn't have to be just 1 to 8 though, Tom. It can also be, you might have 1 to 8 seeds at the French Open, but Daniel Medvedev is amongst those 8, if you like. You don't you sort of want Tsitsipas to sort of be there, so it isn't going to be the even the top 4 as well. Maybe on a hard court, it's a bit more even. That the top seeded players probably are the sort of top ones on the hard court, but we can think of finals before the final. I mean, Coco Gauff this year against Arina Sabalenka, sorry, the final before the final in maybe in Australia at the semi-final stage. The final before the final. If Sinner's playing Alcaraz, for example, at another tournament, and then there's a Kevin Anderson, Rafa Nadal final in New York, perhaps, or perhaps the final. Who remembers the 2018 Wimbledon final?
Who was it?
I know who it was.
Who was it? That's annoying me. Novak and Kevin again.
I was about to say Novak and Kevin.
And it was all about the semi-final with Rafa and Novak, of course.
Oh, not the what was it?
Well,
6-hour epic between.
You could talk about that one as in its individual entity, yeah. But in terms of winning the tournament, 1540, Rafa gets passed by Novak at the net, and yeah, there we go. I mean, with every slam that Novak adds, that probably it becomes less relevant, but there we go. Jack, I know you've got to slide off anyway, so I appreciate your time today, and we'll speak to each other soon.
Yeah, good to see you, John. And Tom, sorry I didn't get to stay to talk to you. But
no, it's all right, Jack. I want a tennis lesson off you sometime soon because I've taken up the sport again. And
really?
I play at Bearsden.
I do.
Yeah. So,
do you live near Bearsden?
10 minutes away.
Well, if you can make your way over to Newlands Park, I'm happy to give you a lesson.
Yes, I'll keep you to that promise, Jack, fella.
Right, Tom.
Nice
Cheers.
one.
Bye, John.
See you later.
Cheers. Take care.
See you later, guys.
Okay, I can stay for about half an hour, Tom.
Okay,
basically, if you're still here in half an hour and you can keep going for say another 20 minutes or so, that's great. And then
I'll go until about 9 o'clock. I'm quite.
That's great. Exactly. Yeah, 9 o'clock ish. There'll probably be a match that's about to end, and then that can sort of be a nice one. That may even be this Bouzková Samsonova match. On my screen, I have Świątek against Shibahara. I'm at the mercy of the bar that I'm in. Unsurprisingly, it's showing Ash. So,
well, let me ask you. Is that? I mean, you don't often find bars in European cities where they're showing the tennis. So let me ask you: is that because the Challengers is in town?
No, it's because for a couple of things. First of all, it's a sports bar, but you're right, not always guaranteed. Secondly, it's a Thursday night and it's not quite Europa League time. Thirdly, I was here yesterday and I asked if I could have the tennis on one of the screens, and they were obliging. So I thought, okay, well that's good. So that meant I knew I'd be safe for today, if you like. So yeah.
Just because again, I've been doing a bit of listening, and they're talking about Cincinnati just being, and talking about it being a proper tennis place, like a proper tennis city, or and person who was listening to was saying they were in bars after the event, and they were going to the hotel bars, and the whole hotel bar was full of people watching the tennis. And I just thought that was interesting because sometimes you think about why is tennis like secondary to football in this country or in the UK, and it's just you couldn't imagine going down to the pub with your pals and saying, "Oh, let's go down and watch the tennis." Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I do, Tom. But do you not also think it's not quite got like a Wimbledon final, sure? And by the way, if you're in and around Wimbledon, the bars will have plenty of tennis on, but it doesn't quite have the same them versus us team tribalism that a football match would have, and therefore doesn't quite attract pub going folks so much.
Let me ask you, and I know this has been discussed with you actually on this channel before, but tennis with commentary or without commentary, where do you stand?
I quite like it without. I'm certainly okay with it without, because I know a lot of tennis commentators get criticised, and sometimes rightfully so. I actually think sometimes unfairly so, that sometimes people just don't like individuals who commentate on tennis, and they just got their beef with them. Okay, fine. But I actually go for without, just because actually they don't probably offer me a lot. And in fact, if I have them down and I can hear the coach talking now more than ever, and I can hear the conversations with the umpires, and I quite just like the vibe of a tennis match, and it gives, you're hearing the crowd and all the rest of it. I don't find that many commentators. Tennis is, we often think about tennis in terms of crowds, and you can get a guy who's been watching Dundee United his entire life, and he will know a million times more than your casual observer, or there is no casual observer of Dundee United, if that makes sense. But when it comes to big matches in football, we expect everybody to know everything. Whereas in tennis, that person, by the way, will and if you go to a Dundee United match, this is what I want to come to. You go to a Dundee United match, I have no idea what their capacity is for their stadium, but 20, 30,000 people, they will all know what's going on. They'll know Dundee United's last result, they'll know their next 10 fixtures, they'll know the problems with the right back, they'll know the injury situation, they'll know the pressure on the manager, they'll know everything about everything that needs to be known about that particular match on that particular day, and they'll probably know plenty about the opponents too. In tennis, 90% of the stadium probably don't even know how to spell the names of the two players that are playing. And it's kind of how it is. It's just how it is.
Would you say, like, let's just say we're talking about an ATP match or a Challenger match. I mean, I know the Challenger Tour does a lot of work on telling people, well, it could probably do more about telling the players' stories. And I think crowds and audience, we buy into people's story. Like, you watch the Olympics and, you've never heard of some of these athletes. You don't know what their story is, but once you hear the commentator telling you, this person was, fighting for life 5 years ago, they had just come back from a cancer recovery, you're immediately into going, I hope they get through this heat. And you look out for them in the next heat. And I wonder if tennis is missing a trick in that sense, like, looking at telling these players' stories. Is it Billy Harris who, drives about the country in a van, or used to anyway, before he started, getting some money in from tennis. He would go to every event, every future event, every challenger, and he would just be in the back of a van. That's a story. So the next time I was seeing him at Wimbledon, I'm thinking, that's the guy who drives about the van. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's up to tennis media and the ATP and the Challenger and the WTA to tell these players' stories and where they've came from.
When it's a top 20 player, for example, a regular top player in the top 20, they're not someone who's just suddenly appeared in the top 20 for the first time in their career, but someone who's, a Tsitsipas or a Medvedev or a Rublev or a Ruud, we sort of know their tennis story, and that's enough. And Ruud could have been smoking 30 cigarettes a day until a year ago or something, and that would be pretty sensational, actually. But that bit aside, the tennis does the talking, and that's enough. The challengers, when you meet a smoker, for example, that's kind of like, that's pretty cool. This is not me endorsing.
Do you get many tennis smokers on the Challenger too?
The guy who beat Djokovic at the Australian Open. Oh God, who was it who beat him?
Istomin.
Yeah.
Dennis Istomin.
Yeah, he's a smoker.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So, exactly.
That was like Prosinecki at the football used to smoke, 40 a day?
Right, yeah, Prosinecki, yeah. Ancelotti, by the way, I think still does smoke, I think. So, these stories when you come to this lower, these are the ones, whether he wins, loses, or, well, obviously not draws, but, it's almost like, I would love to speak to that guy, especially, by the way, Istomin, who I've not interviewed yet, but I would love to interview for two reasons. One, because of the smoker, but two, because of that result against Djokovic. So that's the other thing, when a little bit lower down the rankings, if you get to come to Challenger, have they had like a moment in their career? Even if it's just playing on centre court against Djokovic and they got smashed, it's still okay. At least then, if you do a 1-to-1 and it's a sit-down interview for 15 minutes rather than a quick 2-minute post-match, you can go, you got smashed by Novak, but how was it? That's something. But again, if there's a story like I had with French guy recently who had a serious car crash, and then again you've got something. So again, if there's a backstory,
that kind of story works, because then for me, I'd be like, I can't believe that guy was in a car crash 3 years ago and he's back on playing competitive tennis. You know what I mean? Like, and I'd be like looking out for his scores. I mean, I'll give you an example. It might not just be a great backstory about, you know, redemption or recovery. And I forget the name of the guy. He does that Gladiator Tribes YouTube channel. And he's a tennis player who plays. I think he plays in the Futures in the ITF tour. And I just, for whatever reason, came in my timeline on YouTube the other day, and it was professional tennis player pretends he's a beginner, and it was a 30-minute video. And this guy, he obviously does like quite a lot of these things, and basically he's in Barcelona actually. That's where he lives. I think his name's Kukulkan or something like that. Okay. And basically the video is him. He's trying to book a tennis lesson. He eventually gets one. Most places in Barcelona tell him that it has to be a member of the club, but he eventually finds a club who will let him do it without being a member. So then he gets all the tennis gear and stuff, and he basically says, "Oh, I can't wear my tennis shoes because they'll look worn. And you know, I'm meant to be. I've never stepped in a tennis court before." So he goes and gets new tennis shoes. He gets the brand new Rafa racket because he's like, I'm trying to come across as like a rich guy who's got all this money who just wants to take up the sport of tennis. Anyway, I'm immediately like, there's the hook. I'm engrossed. I want to see how this guy, who the coach who thinks he's a novice and has never picked up a tennis racket, and when he starts hitting forehands and backhands, I mean, there's a funny part where the guy's trying to teach him how to serve, and he's teaching him, and then he does this kick serve, and the guy's like, I've never seen anyone who's never played tennis before play like this. What is going on, kind of thing? And it's got you because it's like, it's different. So immediately I'm now looking at, I know I'm saying this and I can't even remember the guy's name because I didn't know I was going to be talking about this, but I only watched it today and I'm thinking, I'm going to probably follow that guy's channel. I'm going to look out for his scores whenever I'm browsing tennis scores, and it gives it another dynamic. Do you know what I mean? To go, oh, that guy's put me in he's put himself in my consciousness by doing something a bit different. If you get what I mean?
There's a couple of things that spring to mind right now. There's one where there's Dimitar Berbatov, who is like in disguise, and I think he's on the subs bench during like a 6-a-side match or something like that. And you know, it's obviously all set up by this super big YouTube channel guy with like over 1 million subscribers and stuff. And it's like, it's obviously all part of the gig that they then send on Berbatov. And I think the idea is for him to like mess up his first like 5 minutes. So he gets past the ball and he miscontrols it. And of course he's wearing a moustache and a wig and all sorts of things. And he's just playing dreadfully for 5 minutes. And then eventually no one's passing him the ball. And then he turns into Dimitar Berbatov. But he still keeps on the wig and stuff. And then he's doing unbelievable things. And it's like, wow, who's this guy? And then of course eventually takes the wig off. And there's another one with Cristiano Ronaldo in the middle of Madrid where he's dressed up to look like a homeless guy and he's trying to get attention and then eventually finally, I think this is a Nike thing, it might be a Nike thing, I'm not sure, but anyway, eventually he starts doing incredible tricks with a ball, just like the best player of all time, you know, that Cristiano is, Tom. And,
I thought you were going to say Bruno Fernandes there.
And yeah, and anyway, and then of course eventually, and then I think there's kids as well, and eventually he takes his wig off and signs a load of balls and stuff, and off he goes. But yeah, those two things spring to mind. And of course, in the tennis equivalent is kind of what you just said, especially regarding the Berbatov one. Is yeah, this guy's first tennis lesson. He's able to do a kick serve.
If you're wanting to look out for it, it's called Gladiators Tribe. So if you're ever bored, just have a quick swatch of that. Onto the on-court tennis, I was just going to ask you, Nuno Borges. I know that you've followed him in places like Estoril and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, certainly 2024. He seems to be. He's in a lot more. His name's coming up a lot more in you know, the latter stages of tournaments. I mean, what's your thoughts on Nuno Borges? What's he changed? What's he doing differently? Has he just matured as a player? What's going on with Nuno Borges?
I've got a lot to say about Borges in about 2 seconds. I've got Świątek here with 2 match points. Basically, as I said to the audience about half an hour ago, if I'm not talking about Iga, it's because nothing is happening. In other words, she's just steamrolling her opponent, and that's what she's about to do. 6-love, 5-1, 2 match points. She serves out wide. She's going to get a forehand, which she'll probably put away. No, good defense there, to be fair, from her opponent, but that lands out, and she wins with consummate ease, 6-love, 6-1. So she is through to the 3rd round. Mirra Andreeva is out. And the reason why I mentioned that in the same moment is because that would have been a potential 4th round, I believe, for Iga. So her path to the quarterfinals looks not bad. Let's say that. Nuno Borges, No, I don't think that there's been a massive. I think he's always been decent, and decent sounds a bit harsh, but it is kind of how I feel about Nuno, in that he's not a guy with a phenomenal weapon, or it's not a guy who's made a phenomenal step forward this year. He had a great run in Australia where he got to the fourth round, loses in 4 sets, I think it was, to Daniil Medvedev. That was the match, by the way, when Medvedev gives that great on-court interview with Jim Courier afterwards, talking about his return position. So, by the way, not all tennis commentators are lame. Lots are good, but I still like to have the sound down. Maybe the sound down, and then if Jim Courier is doing the on-court interview afterwards,
I like Jim Courier. I think Jim Courier's good.
Yeah.
I know Rob Koenig, he splits opinions sometimes, but
yeah, he does. But I don't mind him as a commentator, but of course he's the principal commentator, if you like, and then he'll lean on an expert opinion from somewhere else. But of course, tennis commentators. I'll tell you what. Also, I tell you what does annoy me about tennis commentators is in Germany, at least, it happens from time to time that sometimes they'll talk during the point, and I'm like, they don't talk during the point. They'll continue. Becker and whoever else is there is still talking as the point is beginning.
Right,
and that's when you got to be quiet.
But is that a traditional thing, or is that because they're in the stadium and they think they're going to put the player off, or is it just to let the viewer basically concentrate on the point?
The player off because the players can't hear them because they're in a cocoon booth, so players. So
is it just to let the viewer concentrate on the point?
Absolutely, because radio commentators talk constantly. And of course, they're in their booths as well, but it's a lot harder as well if you're a radio commentator because you just can't stop, if you like. But yeah, back to Borges. I think he's a really, 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 really good tennis player. Doesn't have a phenomenal weapon, but he's good enough to make fourth rounds and potentially maybe even quarterfinals of slams. Is he going to win a Grand Slam? I would be amazed and stunned. Is he going to take huge leaps forward without having a weapon that he can improve on or just lean on? Probably not. Are we going to see him in third? Yeah. He's just is he going to win? This year, of course, stands out because he wins his first title. He gets to the fourth round in Australia and probably will, at some point, either this year or next, reach, and it may even be this week, by the way, reach the highest, I think, a Portuguese player has ever been. I think João Sousa has 28 in the world, and that's the highest ranked Portuguese player ever. So, yeah, that's why this year stands out for him. Draper is very close to winning the first set.
Yeah, I've got that one on.
Oh, have you? Okay, interesting. So definitely keep us updated on that one and let us know your thoughts. I see De Minaur is struggling against Virtanen, but maybe I should be saying that Virtanen is doing phenomenally against De Minaur. And Virtanen now that's a ceiling and a half. When Virtanen is on, then he's on, and he's got a top 20 game. But as many tennis commentators far wiser than me have suggested, it's not about your ceiling, it's about your base.
Yeah, good point. Let me just quickly go into Iga. I didn't know the score until you read it out at the end there. Was it 6-love, 6-1?
6-love, 6-1, yeah.
Okay. I noticed Nick, good friend Nick, who, mentioned about players, he didn't want to watch players burn themselves out because they're playing too many tournaments, okay? And I just wondered, first of all, I don't think, as far as I'm aware, the tennis players are playing any more tournaments or any more events than they did in the 90s and the noughties, and in terms of time on court, yes, maybe they spend a little bit more time in court, but does Iga Świątek, who's been the most high profile recently, to say, tennis players are playing too much tennis, but she's just proved there, she's just won a Grand Slam match in probably, if I'm not right, probably about 40 minutes. So it doesn't really kind of ring true that these tennis players, I think.
Let's hear your opinion, Tom, because it sounds like you don't have. Maybe
I don't think the tennis players there's too much tennis for them. I don't think. Okay. I don't think that it's fair for Iga Świątek to say, the tennis players are getting burnt out. There's the same amount of events, there's the same amount of tournaments as there's always been.
I think there's a bit more, but even putting that aside.
Well, Iga Świątek, does she play the 250s? Does she play the 500s? Probably not. She's usually only really playing Grand Slam tennis and Masters 1000. So
there is a mandatory amount of events that you do have to play, which I also think is kind of wrong. I don't quite understand why you can say you have to play this tennis event, because all you do is you have players turning up and pulling out or turning
what happens to them if they don't play it? Really, do they get fined? What's the?
I'm not sure, or they just invent an excuse, an injury or whatever. But why do that? Why? Exactly. What is going on in a sport where you say You have to play. I mean, no one would do that in any other sport, surely. Of course, it's to sell tickets and all the rest of it. I get that.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do is you're going to get injured players turning up and pulling out, or injured players turning up and not putting in 100%. It just, to me, it's nonsensical. In any, you can't have a sport that says you have to play. Well, what about I've got this problem, or so obviously, Tom, you can see that I'm on a slightly different side of the fence to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see the best players in their best form and their best health at as many tournaments or as often as I can. And this is not me having making 250s, because I love 250s, I love challenges, I love 170s. I think there's a whole lot wrong in terms of on the ATP side with the challenges. They've made it a lot more difficult this year to get points in challenges, or made it a lot more lower incentive in terms of points. But I think that's unfortunate, because it means that 100 in the world are more cocooned than ever before. That's why we're always talking about certain players. How are they losing every week, but they're still in the top 100 or still in the top 10 or whatever? Because the ATP side, at least, is a lot more, in my opinion, biased to those that have already established themselves. And I think that they should offer a lot more. Anyway, so
I mean, if you get to the top 32 in the world, you're pretty much, if you pick your events right, you could stay there for a while. Do you know what I mean? By points and automatic qualifications into the bigger events. I mean, what my point is, I think, is tennis players, I think, in 2024, 2023, let's say, getting to Grand Slam finals, winning events, you're probably going to be playing about 80 tennis matches a year, something like that, would you say?
Maybe a bit. Well, if you're Iga Świątek, maybe 80, but a lot of other players will be closer to 60.
Okay. I think if you went back to the 90s, though, you're probably talking that the same the players who are getting to the end of events, I'm sure they'll have still been playing on average between 75 and 90 matches. So are tennis players really playing more tennis than they ever were before? I don't think it rings true. I think it's an easy thing to say, because you hear footballers say, "Oh, we play too many games," and that is true because there's so many events now. But tennis, I don't know if it's just a tagline that these players are saying. I think, I mean, as far as Iga Świątek's concerned, they've got 500s. I don't think she ever plays a 250. I might be wrong in that. She gets 500s and the ATP Masters, and then the 4 Grand Slams. I think
wouldn't you like her to play some 250s? There's a reason why she doesn't play the 250s.
Because she's playing because they're mandatory.
There's too much tennis. This is how I see it, and I'm a fan. I mean, there's Damien's, by the way, that can't get enough tennis. All right, but we have to remember that he's a tennis brain in a jar. That guy. There's a tennis match that breaks out in the street, and he's out there checking out to see. And he's criticising their backhands, by the way. But there's Damien's. But the rest of the Hughes, the me's, the Jacks, and everyone else that's sort of dipping. We're dipping in and dipping out, and there's a reason we're dipping in and dipping out, because there's so much. I can talk to you after Canada and Cincinnati, and by the way, you're in the probably top 10% or even top 5% of people who are watching tennis throughout the rest of the year. 95% of tennis fans are watching less tennis than you. So, but even you are probably going, I know there's time zones to consider, but whatever, you're still dipping in, dipping out. Even if it's in the UK, the tennis, you're still dipping in, dipping out. So I want to see Iga Świątek play some 250s, and Daniel Medvedev. I think it's 2 players. I think Medvedev is one of them. I forget who the other one is on the ATP side, but they haven't played a 250 for like 15 months or 18 months. And the only time you see these guys, I mean, I know Nadal played one recently, of course, in Sweden, and I know Djokovic after the COVID situation played 1 or 2 in the build-up towards the ATP finals in 2022. But there's a reason why, because those are very unusual situations with those 2 players. But I want to see them play 250s, and that's because, in my opinion, having in 1 week two 500s and a 250 in the same week, having 10 1000s now, I think on the women's side, it devalues the 1000. A 1000 used to be huge. It was you have your Indian Wells, your Miamis, and so on. I actually want to see a couple of 1000s less, so we have 4 Grand Slams, 8 1000s, for example. I want to see 250s become elevated in importance, so that you don't have Iga not playing them. And I don't want to turn up at a tournament and a player's just playing for the appearance, or even though they're going through an injury or whatever. I don't want to. There should not be any mandatory tournament. No tournament should be mandatory. You're a human being, okay? and you shouldn't be, no matter how much your salary is or whatever, you should be at liberty to say, sorry, I don't want to play this event, even if it's just because I don't want to. That's fine. You don't want to play there, no problem. We'll move on. That's how I see it anyway.
No, you make some good points. I just sometimes with these guys, you know, when they're saying, "Oh, we play too much tennis," I'd be interested. I mean, I'll look in the WTA website after this. I'd be interested to know how many matches Iga Świątek's actually played this year, and I don't know if I fully agree that
it's 60 odd already. It's
60 odd already, right? So how much more tennis has she really got in between now and the end of the year?
Another 10 or 20 matches, yeah.
So I mean,
but I'd also like, you know, some of these players, not so much Iga, but even other players. It'd be great if they could, you know, work on their game a bit. And by the way, I think regarding football on the same time, I think football there's
diluting the product in it, because it's just on like the World Cup. I mean, I know Arsene Wenger wants to make that every year, but like the World Cup is great because it's once every 4 years and it builds up to
exactly.
And you know, I've said this before. Football, I'm getting disillusioned by it because it's just on all the time, and there's nothing to
exactly. And it's the same with tennis.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, would you then be looking at? I always get confused if it was the Saudi deal or if it was the Tennis Australia deal. But the one that had just the 4 Grand Slams and these. Well, maybe I think they were going to add another 1,000. Then that was going to be the only tournaments that the top 100 play. Was that the deal?
Yeah, I don't. It's possible, and sometimes we can forget about this when we look at a binary situation or we're presented with a binary situation. It's possible to not like either deal. I think the Saudi thing sucks for a million reasons, and I certainly think the Australia one that you mentioned sucks too, because I don't want to see just. The top 8 players all the time playing just because they're cocooned in this situation, or I want it to be a nice fluid situation. And if you're playing great tennis, then you're in the top 40 in the world, whatever. And if you're playing great tennis for a week, so be it. And then you come out. I was actually talking to a professional player about this a couple of weeks ago. At least it wasn't on the record, put it that way. But you know, he was frustrated that his performances weren't being justified. You know, he's winning titles at the challenger level. He's playing great. He's getting to semis and finals, but he's finding it. Oh, with Rybakina's withdrawn.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, but that's what Nerland's telling us. Yeah, so wow.
Oh, dearie me. I mean, I've said my piece on what I've just said anyway. But Rybakina withdrawn. My goodness. Okay, I've just seen that. Thank you, Nerland, for alerting us to that. Well, good for Ponchek. She's through the 3rd round, but. The reason why I'm going, well, you probably can guess why I'm going dear with me, Tom, right?
Because you picked her for the win?
No.
Because she's a friend of the show? I don't know.
No, neither. No, we don't. We got Paolini there, but I think if we get someone like Rybakina, that would lose the coolness of the friend of the show. No, just because it just happens all the time with Rybakina.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I watched her. Who did she beat in the last round again? Because I watched the end of that match.
Yeah, she had to save some set points, I know.
And when she was walking, the commentator on the Sky stream that I was watching said, you know, she's looking good so far. If only she can stay healthy. And I just thought at the time, isn't that such a kind of statement to make for a player that, like, you know, you've got no reason going into this tournament why she wouldn't be able to stay absolutely injury free. And, you know, less than 48 hours, she's gone, she's out. I wonder if it's injury or if it's going to be, you know, this illness that she's always carrying about. I feel sorry for the girl, but, you know, yeah, it's a tough world.
I think what is happening with Elena, and we don't know all the ins and outs, and nor do we have a right to know. But what is striking about it compared to other people that have an injury issue, and Miles is saying, "I'll be shocked." No, we're not. But that's hopefully I expressed that in my response. I'm like, what's happening is that she's entering tournaments, and 24 hours, 12 hours, 35 minutes before her match is due to take place, we're then getting the information that she's withdrawn. And that happened. I think the 35-minute example may have been a Grand Slam, I'm not sure, but I remember her turning up in Indian Wells, for example, this year, giving her pre-match press conference. The next day she's obviously going to play or whatever, or pre-tournament press conference. The next day she's going to play, and then just before she's about to play, and then she stays in Indian Wells and practices, and then plays in Miami and gets to the finals. It turns out. So I think with Rafa Nadal, for example, we kept waiting for the videos of "Hola a todos," hello to everyone, and then he wants to come back and play a tennis tournament, but he's just trying, and he's still injured and it's not working out. With Rebecca, the mystery is that she's appearing at the tennis tournaments and then on the verge of playing a match, and she plays like she has done this week. She plays a match and then pulls out, and there could be a huge backstory that none of us know about, and hopefully she's healthy. And
let me ask you that. I was going to ask that, John, because it was going to lead me on to my next point. I was going to ask you, do we have any understanding on what this kind of illness, this fatigue, do we have the sickness bug? Because I wonder if we're finding out the whole truth, and I don't want. Look, I would never wish an injury or illness on anyone, no friend, foe, athlete. But do we think that there's a chance? And I'm just whispering. There's a chance that this illness could be hampering her career so much that there could be, in the next 12 months, 18 months, a retirement here. And I don't want to be dramatic, but I don't know how she. I mean, there's no longer a big three in women's tennis. There was for about 6 months. The three of them, but I don't think that's apt anymore. And I just wonder, can you see in the future that an announcement on Twitter one day saying Elena Rybakina has decided to retire for tennis? Because I can see that being a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea if this is mental at all. And again, I think the thing is, the reason why you and I are talking about it in this way is because it's not like the persistent shoulder injury is back again, and with Nadal, although there was some mystery, we sort of had some ideas of where it was a hip, wasn't it, with Rafa, and perhaps still is, and other players that have had persistent injuries, and we've got I think about some young footballers, for example, with shin splints, for example, and it keeps happening, or other people that are older players with joints, etc. We just don't know. So, and that's fine. That's a prerogative. But yeah, regarding your point, nothing would surprise me. Nothing.
Yeah.
Her in terms of the immediate future, her withdrawing, as Miles says, are we shocked? No. Her winning the US Open, is also a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
But and it's normally one or the other. But yeah, I don't know what else to add. And if she retires, then. And that happens, so be it. I hadn't thought about the retirement thing, but again, maybe there's some chronic injury that we just don't know about, and she doesn't want to reveal.
Yeah, I suppose my question was: would you be shocked if in the next 18 months you were to see that announcement that Elena Rybakina was to retire?
When you put it like that, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make me fall off my chair in the same way that Ash Barty's retirement did, if you like. That's for sure.
Fair enough.
But yeah, and Miles makes a point. The watching public. Would you rush to see a Rebecca match? No, probably not. If you had any idea about tennis, which most of the watching public don't, then yeah, if you probably wouldn't be buying a ticket for Rebecca match anytime soon, because the likelihood is it won't take place. Now, if you want to be harsh, you could say she may have known that her likelihood of finishing the tournament was quite high, and therefore maybe somebody else, of course, could have taken that place.
I don't know. There was reports that it was very, very warm. Now, again, I don't know what this illness was, but there's reports that it was very, very warm. And was it yesterday she finished up her match, or was that Tuesday? But yeah, so I don't know if there's anything linked to that. The heat, dehydration, something like that. We're just guessing here, aren't we?
I think temperatures today much cooler. Simon Cambers on Twitter earlier, I saw him saying that it's a lot more tennis friendly today. That's for sure. By the way, Pegula has had she's on the second of 3 set points against Sofia Kenin in what looks like a pretty tight match. My big screen did just dip into that briefly, but it's dipped away again, and they're showing highlights. It looks like a Mickelson against Sinner, but we'll see the scoreboard tick over potentially in favour of Jessica Pegula winning that first set. I don't know if you've got Pegula going. Did you do a bracket, Tom?
I didn't know. I was actually going. I've never done one of the brackets. But listen, I gave up gambling because I was just so bad. I would put 20 quid on every week, and I would just come nowhere near winning it. And I just feared that that would be my. I'm not a lucky man, John. I never win. I've never won a raffle, lottery, lotto, anything. So I just thought, I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to crash and burn. So rather than lose my pride, I tried to save a bit of face. But do you know what? I'll build myself up, and I'll do one in Australia for you.
There you go. Do one in Australia, and then it doesn't have to be any money. But yeah, a lot of people saying sad to see we're back in a draw, etc. Samsonova, who I think was down a set and a break, in fact I know she was, is mounting a comeback against Bouzková. In fact, she's forced a third set there. Pegula has got over the line in that first set with Kenny.
Jack Draper. He was 15-40 down when he was serving for that first set. Managed to, as you can see, come through it. But I think Diaz Acosta, I like him. I know that he's kind of predominantly linked with the clay court because of that Argentina Open win. But I still fancy it. I still quite like a player. So I think, don't quote me on it, and this is what I'm talking about, my predictions. But I think this one will go a little bit further than a straight sets win for Jack.
Well, as I said earlier, that'd be actually more with Jack. Jack, as in Jack.
Ah, the other Jack, the real Jack.
The real Jack. I was saying to him that Jack Draper could do with some straight sets wins, I think, at slams, just because I worry about him when he has a 5-setter and especially back-to-back. In the match that someone has to win, Goffin is up 4-3 in the tie-break, but they are on serve against Mannarino. The reason I'm describing it as Mannarino had Borna Coric in the first round, and it was two guys as well that were ranked sort of between 35 and 100 in the world, but neither of them are really doing much in the last 12 to 24 months, or maybe a bit less so in Mannarino's case. And Goffin as well is someone that, is just hanging around in that bubble. But as I say, I think that the points, because I think they did something at the end of the last season where it basically tried to encourage players playing at the Challenger Tour to come onto the main tour, and I think they reduced the number of points on offer in challenges, and what you just find is that the players like Goffin, Mannarino, and Coric are not winning any matches, but they still stay in the top 100. And even Gasquet as well. I think he's just dropped out, but it took a while.
The average age of that bracket must be about 35 or something.
There you go. Is that you? I'm talking about lots of players. By the way, Mannarino fully deserved, his late autumn of his career run, but. Yeah, I mean, I always see this both in the chat but also in comments. Maria Sakkari just stays in the top 10 somehow, and probably she must be about to fall out, having gone out.
She's 12 now or something, I think.
She's 12. Is she in the live ranking? Okay, but she was until the US Open in the top 10. But anyway,
Game 1 Feast as well.
but he's winning matches at least.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Did he win? Was he playing Casper Ruud or am I making that?
He lost to Casper yesterday in 4 sets. Yeah. There was a between your man Andy Murray and Casper Ruud. There was a bit of a love-in on Twitter today.
Oh, good. My two favourites, two handsome men.
Because Casper said he tweeted there was one of these rallies posted from the US Open Twitter account, and it's an incredible rally where Casper Ruud is on the defensive and ultimately ends up winning the point. And he tags Andy Murray in his tweet by saying, "Look, I've taken the leaf out of Andy's book and whatever." And then Andy then comments by saying, "Well done, congratulations. Thanks for taking the leaf out of my book. But if you keep doing that, you'll have no hips at the end of the day." I don't know if Casper's yet to respond to that, but there we go. But so Casper's through in 4 sets over Monfils.
Casper's chances going to quarterfinals at least.
Yeah, but that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Zverev has
Zverev is one of the 4 main contenders and has, you could put.
But I think it's Casper and Zverev in the quarterfinal, isn't it? I think.
Okay, is that if that ends up happening, then Zverev wins that. Casper on a clay court, and they did play, of course, in the semi-finals of the French Open this year and last, albeit with 2 different results. But no, the hard courts and where Zverev is right now, Zverev wins that. And in fact, when it comes to the men's side, there's 4 players that are head and shoulders above everyone else right now, and that should be the semi-final lineup. We know how tennis is.
Medvedev in New York, he's got history. He loves these courts.
Medvedev hasn't won a title in 16 months.
He loves this US hard
I
court.
know, but he lost back-to-back matches in Canada and Cincinnati. Hey, listen, yeah, he might make the semis, but he's not winning the title. He's just not winning.
But we all said that. We said after the Cincinnati final last year at 2023, we said Djokovic and Alcaraz are so far ahead of all the rest of the field. This is a done deal.
Who won the US Open?
Yes, but
I know what
who
you're
did he
going
play
to
in the
say.
final? Who did he play
Alcaraz.
Yeah.
I know, but my point is this. Okay, so I sort of revised it as a mid-sentence just now. Okay, Medvedev could make the semi-finals, but he's not winning the title, and so Alcaraz and Djokovic, they were still far ahead of the pack, even though that happened between Medvedev and Alcaraz. That was an outlier for that rivalry between Medvedev and Alcaraz. They'll play each other 30 times come the end of their careers, and Alcaraz will win 25.
Yeah.
So the Hedgehog, by the way, thanks for joining us. Do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Talking about allergies, I guess that's in reference to Rybakina, not in reference to Medvedev and winning this title or beating Alcaraz. In the match that someone has to win, Goffin and Mannarino are just exchanging points right now, and 6-7 in the tiebreak. Jack Draper, by the way.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I looked around. This is what I'm talking about, John. Whenever I say
straight set Draper incoming.
Yeah, this will be good. In fact, is Alcaraz next? Is it, or fourth round? Would it be?
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay, I'm sure. Maybe. I'm sure they're in the same bracket.
I've got the women's bracket up. Just I'm sharing on the screen right now because I think this is a really interesting section of the draw that I'm sharing. But I'm going to get the men's bracket up before I have to leave. US Open tennis. In fact, you and I could probably leave. If we both have to leave at 9 o'clock, then we can probably bring this stream to an end at 9.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, US Open website. That's a good way of looking at a bracket of the draw. Sinner sizzles in easy win over Mickelson is what it says on the US Open webpage. If I was Mickelson and I saw that Sinner sizzles, yeah, fine. Easy win over me. If that said Sinner sizzles an easy win over Silk, I don't know if I'd like to see easy win, no matter what the scoreline was. If that said easy win over me and I had the same result, I'll go, hang on a second. I broke Jannik Sters twice in the first set, and I forced him. It was a 6-4, but it was a close first set. So drop the easy is what I would say.
Do you know what I found interesting, John? And you're a far more experienced tennis follower than I. Jannik Sinner, now I know he's not a defending champion at the US Open, but he's world number 1. And I just found it interesting that they introduced him to a half-empty court on the first day. And I wondered if this was, purposely done to, in case there was going to be some sort of backlash from, tennis fans in terms of the drug. I don't know. I just found it interesting. World number 1 comes out to play in the US Open, and it's like 11 o'clock in the afternoon, New York time. We literally looked around the stadium, and there was like 10 people in it. And I'm just wondering.
That's a tennis problem. That's nothing to do with, as far as I'm concerned, it's nothing to do with, any backlash with Jannik, and that may or may not occur. But I
just thought it was interesting because he's world number 1. He's playing in America.
Yeah, you must have watched hundreds of tennis matches at Roland Garros in particular, but Wimbledon too, definitely. I remember being at Wimbledon quarterfinal, Taylor Fritz, Rafa Nadal, 2022, incredible 5-set match, and all sorts of drama going on. Rafa Nadal, one of, if not the most famous tennis player of all time for many reasons, and yet even in the 5th set, there was probably half the stadium empty. I remember seeing this bunch of seats in front of me. And a bunch of people arrived and then they left again. And I even asked them as they were leaving, I was like, "What are you leaving?" "Oh, we're from Evian, the water and sponsor stuff." And, they're just there to whatever. And when it comes to these Grand Slam matches, and none more so than the first one of the day or one of the early ones, in fact, of course, today was the first one with Jannik, the stadiums are often 10, 20% full. Maybe it was slightly less today with Jannik, but if you said to me, by the way, John, did you see the Jannik Sinner match earlier? And I said, no, or yes, or whatever. And I said, no. And you said, oh, by the way, the stadium was almost empty. I'd be like, yeah, welcome to Grand Slam tennis.
I suppose you're right. It's just like, I just wondered that maybe I'm getting all conspiracy.
$200 or $300 for a ticket, and Sure, Sinner Alcaraz quarterfinal. But by the way, they bring those prices down at the last minute. But by which most of the average New York public are going, you know what? I'm looking, but they bring the prices down, and that's something that
It's 120 Australian dollars for the week pass, the week ground pass at the Australian Open. 120 Australian dollars.
But I can also tell you this: I paid about $50 for women's quarter. This is New York women's quarterfinals. About $50 for 2 women's quarterfinals. I had Pliskova, I think, Sabalenka, and I can't remember what the second quarterfinal was. But I had the day ticket, $50, 2 quarterfinals on the women's side. I was like, wow, this is no, it wasn't women's side. It was Sinner. It was Sabalenka, Pliskova, followed by Tiafoe against Rublev, and I had those 2 matches for $50. And the reason why I bought it on the day of the match. Day of the match.
So you do your chance. You just take your chance, whatever's going to be on.
Well, to be honest with you, if you're traveling halfway across the world, or even a bit less, but a 5 or 6 hour flight as it would be from Europe, sure, you probably want the guarantee. And if you're buying a ticket for the final, you definitely want to do it in advance. I was there for 4 or 5 days, and I already had a couple of tickets anyway. Maybe I had my semi-finals or whatever. But I also had the experience of having been before, knowing I could get tickets quite reasonably. And I thought, I'll just buy them. I bought the women's final ticket also on the day with Jabeur against Świątek. $100, I think it was. It wasn't. It might be. It was either 100 or 200, but it wasn't nuts. But a lot of people are traveling further away, or even if they're not, they're going on there 2 days before, going, I'm not paying $300, and off it goes into the memory.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Diaz Acosta is just double faulted, and he's a double breakdown on Draper. So it looks like Draper's wrapped up that second set. And I've got a bit of egg in my face in terms of me liking Diaz Acosta. So we'll see what happens.
To me, Diaz Acosta is all about the clay.
I don't know.
I think
he can hit a ball. He can hit a ball. I know that's very.
Can you hit a ball?
Do you know something? I was hitting the ball decent on Friday night.
Yeah, but was it landing in?
Yeah, it was just about some of them. But yeah, no, I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying playing getting out there. It's good. It's good.
Nothing against Kaboli, but I'm enjoying seeing Zuzu up a set, albeit he's down a break in the second. What was the section of the draw that? It was Jack Draper's section, wasn't it?
I think it's Alcaraz. It's either Alcaraz next.
Yeah. I'm bringing it up right now. Yes, so Draper up a set and a break there, and by the way, whoever wins that match, he's playing Carlos Alcaraz. There is not. I don't know what could possibly be a bigger shock than. And this is another one. I love Bodic van der Zandschulp. He's not maybe the biggest character on tour, blah, 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 but I've come across him a couple of times. He's super nice, super giving with his time. Nice guy, Bodic, blah, blah, blah. But one, you're not beating Carlos Alcaraz. And two, again, it comes back to this point that you can lose 100 matches and still stay in the top 100 somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't like this cocoon thing that was, as I say.
So something needs to change.
I'll tell you off air, by the way, who this guy was at the challenger level who was just having lunch recently and said, he even said you might have a challenger player. I nearly gave a bit more of a clue away, but I'm not going to say anymore. But he comes up to me and says, do you mind if I sit and have lunch down here? I was like, yeah, sure. You've just won a tennis match. You're more than welcome to chew the fat.
You must have been like that. You must have been rubbing your hands going, here we go.
Well, yeah, but I also wanted to make sure that it was a sort of a relaxed, I didn't want to make him think that he's in the press conference that we were just in as well. I wanted him to just enjoy the conference.
You didn't pull out the microphone?
No. But I was like, yeah, tell us what you think. And he said, yeah, it's annoying that you can do that well and still this top 100 are as safeguarded as they are. But yeah, anyway, back to this section draw. And there's Goffin and Mannarino in there. And so Mahac is probably there lying in wait for me. I think Mahac beats Mannarino or Goffin.
Yeah.
And then it's Alcaraz. Alcaraz's draw. I mean, Draper's a challenge. Draper's a challenge. I think on a quicker court, Draper would pose a bigger challenge. If it was Wimbledon or or fast hard like Miami or something like that. I mean, I know New York is apparently quicker than it's ever been, but it's still not as fast as Cincinnati, I think.
I don't know. I think I've got to. I mean, listen, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world should track trade, but I know there's a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda to get there. But oft. Now there's a question. I was actually playing the other day thinking I was like, I need to be good by the time I play John Silk somewhere because I'll never hear the end of it if I get scudded 6-love, 6-love. So,
Never hit the end of it. It's basically what happens when England or Manchester United lose, Tom. Listen, death, taxes, and Manchester United losing, consequently Tom posting in the live chat or in our WhatsApp group. Those are pretty much guaranteed.
Well, listen, you'll be getting it on Sunday if Liverpool.
Oh God! Oh
what?
yeah, Sunday. Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up on that bombshell, I was going to ask you about. We're just talking about Medvedev, but I want to get your thoughts on Marushan. Do you think he's got a good chance against Daniil Medvedev?
Well,
I mean, again, he's another one that you could probably say he's a clay court player, but
on clay, Marushan's the favourite in that match for sure. Damien's going to be covering that on the channel. And when Damien said he wasn't, because I said to Damien, I said, maybe you want to be up for some of the early matches because he has a task to do in terms of media notes around about this time when the next day's play comes out. And so I said, probably therefore, like it was yesterday, he did some of the earlier matches. And he said, the early matches suck. I want to do the 1 a.m. match or midnight matches as they are in the UK. I want to do the 1 a.m. matches because it's Bouzková against Osaka, I think.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's Marushan against Medvedev. And that's got Damien written all over it, especially from the Marushan side.
Yeah, he loves Marushan, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, you say that.
He's got a love-hate relationship with him.
But he would deny. He denies it when you say it about anyone, even though for about 3 weeks he was just all over Berrettini earlier on that he had this year. A couple of weeks ago, he's like, what's going on between you and Matteo? So anyway, but he has his phases. So, but yeah, on a hard court, no. Maybe 4 sets.
You've just literally been saying.
I know, and I knew as soon as I said that. As soon as I said on a hard court, no, I thought, here we go. Tom's going to come back. He's going to talk about Medvedev.
Yeah, I don't mess this right.
In the match that someone's got to win, Manarino won the first set 10-8 on a tie break. I can see this being 5 tie breaks and the 5th one being like 40-38, just because they can't win a tennis match.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's finish it there. I've thoroughly enjoyed that hour, John. And I'll definitely do it again soon over the weekend or something.
Definitely.
I'm pretty calm for the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, just drop us a message. But anyone who's listened or watching, again, thanks for giving me your time.
Miles is loving that match. Someone has to win.
Yeah, he does. He loves it.
I'll end the stream, Tom, but thanks very much.
Cool, guys. Thanks very much. See you later.
See you soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.